Hello, superhero scholars. For today's lesson, you will need the following items: a pen or pencil and paper. That's for collecting your thoughts as we go through the slideshow together. And then you'll also need access to the following Google Classroom items. I will have these linked in the slideshow today, but we want to make sure you have proper access to those items through Google Classroom. You'll be looking for the Romeo and Juliet character breakdown, the Romeo and Juliet casting call, and the Romeo and Juliet 15-minute summary. The first one here is a slideshow telling you about all the characters in the play Romeo and Juliet. The next is a worksheet that you'll complete, and then the next is our main text for analysis today. That's a 15-minute summary of the entire play. Now, from those items, you might be wondering, why are we talking about Romeo and Juliet? Well, today's lesson covers the plot of Romeo and Juliet. And there's two reasons why today's lesson does that. The first is our essential question wants us to consider, what is the more powerful force in our lives? Destiny and fate, or free will and choice? In the story of Romeo and Juliet, there is a lot of examples for either side of that argument. Now, we don't have the time to cover line by line the entire play, but if we have an understanding of the play and we look at some examples, which we'll do next class, that will give us enough coverage of the play to move on with our unit. Now, the second reason we're doing this is today's skill is to be able to read a larger piece and then summarize it in a smaller writing on our own. We're working on concise, detailed, objective summary writing. I'll get to that when we read the objective for today. Okay, so next slide shows that last class, on our exit slip, you also had what was your response to the reading early on in the lesson. And that was where you were reading about strategies to deal with isolation or anxiety that might come up through distance learning and also just getting through the day-to-day during this pandemic. As you can see, our responses were varied. The most popular response was focusing on you. Now, there's no right or wrong answer here for everyone. Everyone has their own right answer. But of the 6 strategies for teens facing this new normal, these are the answers that our class came up with. These are the tactics we want to be using as we get through this week. Whatever you chose, please try to keep doing that through this week, because your mental health, your emotional stability is very important. We will get through this together, but being separated as we are, we've got to hold each other accountable to keeping care of ourselves. Okay, moving on. Getting back to Romeo and Juliet. What I'd like for you to do right now is a short, quick write, just addressing this question. What do you know about Romeo and Juliet? If you don't know about anything, or if you can't come up with something right now, take a look at the pictures that I have supplied here on this slide, and then commit to a quick write of 4 minutes. You can pause the video right now as you begin writing, and then we'll come back. Go. All right. Those thoughts that you wrote down, those quick write ideas, those are going to help you when we get to the end of today's lesson when we're writing our summary. But that's a good place to start. Keep those notes as we go along and move on to the next slide, which gives us our agenda. After our quick write, we're first going to have a Romeo and Juliet summary example. Now, this first example is written in a different style than what we're writing, but I think it will really be an interesting and fun way to get into the details of this story. You're also going to have a video that summarizes the entire play, and it's another way to get the information about the plot to you in a way that I think will be pretty engaging. as you're following along at home. After that, we're going to examine all of the characters in the play. This is a way to give you guided notes so that when we're talking about the play, you can kind of keep track of which characters did what and were important in which parts of the story. We're going to have a short plot quiz. That's just going to review everything that we did up to that point in the lesson before we get the final summary example, which is going to be a very detailed summary. But it's going to give us an example of the type of writing we're aiming for today. And then you're going to write your own plot summary before completing the exit slip and submitting that through our Google Forms. All right, so today's objective summarizes that entire agenda by saying that each one of you will be able to compose a summary of the major plot events in the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet after analyzing 3 different summary examples. To get started on those summary examples, go to the next slide, which will give you the new video of instructions for the examples.